Hello, and welcome to the Energy and Consciousness Summit. Today, I have with me Jessica Luibrand, and she is let me make sure I get your title right, the International Class Coordinator for Biofield Tuning. And so she is a biofield tuning facilitator, as well as many other healing modalities. So I chose Jessica because she teaches biofield tuning, and I felt that she would have the breadth of knowledge to share what a fabulous tool this is. And I also chose her because I've listened to several interviews and just really loved her stories and her energy. And so I hope that you all find her as inspiring as I do. So welcome, Jess, and thank you for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you share with the audience a little bit about you and your background? And
So I am the International Class Coordinator for Biofield Tuning, which has been on hold, unfortunately, for global pandemic reasons. But I'm also a teacher and certified practitioner of the method as well. And I met Eileen in 2014, and I was the lab manager of a subtle energy laboratory in San Diego, California. And every year we had an annual energy healing conference. And up on stage was this amazing, dynamic, charismatic, intelligent, strong, beautiful woman named Eileen McCusick. And after she got off stage, I met her and she met me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she was like, oh my gosh, what do you do? And I was like, well, actually, the laboratory next door, I run. So if you want to see our devices on researching and qualifying and quantifying energy medicine, I would love to take you on a tour of my lab. And then we became instant friends over our love of science and research and, being very much open to this sort of realm of the unknown, but also having a desire to explain it to other people so that they can tangibly feel it or sense it or see it in some way, shape, or form. So since 2014, I've been with the company, and Eileen personally asked me to become one of her original teachers, just again, because of my love of travel, just because of my knowledge and sort of background of energy healing and energy medicine. So that's sort of why she chose me. But, my story is a little long and twisty and turny as far as, medical field made me sick, had nowhere else to turn. And then, the alternative medical field really helped me out, really broadened my horizons. I have an undergrad degree in health sciences from a university in Michigan. And after that, I really just needed some alternative healing, and I needed to open up my scope a little bit wider than it was, and that I was taught in the track, of the sort of bachelor's degree that I have as it was laid down. And so my eyes and ears and senses and everything was opened by a local naturopath in Michigan, who taught me how stress affected the body, which was, interesting to me. I just thought the body was sort of chemical based on everything that I had learned. Realized that it wasn't, that there were other layers, realized how food and water and the types of food and water that you put in your body, also how often you work out your body, and then also like how happy you are is a factor in your health and wellness. And so I just started diving into energy healing. I studied Reiki. I also studied something called pranic healing. I taught that for a little while as well. But when I found biofield tuning, it was just the most effective thing that I have ever worked with in my whole life. And being someone who really appreciates efficiency, I was just like, I have to do biofield tuning. I have to learn it. I have to do it. I have to teach it, and I have to share it because it's so efficient and it's so effective that I want to be the most effective tuner for my clients so that they only have to see me a few times. And then if they ever see me again, it's only to give me like a referral to someone else. Like, I don't want to have to see them, because someone who, when I got sick because of the medical field, it was like, come back for another doctor's appointment, and here's another pharmaceutical drug. And it was this constant like going back and, repeat business, if you will. So what I appreciate so much about Biofield Tuning is how efficient it is, and just the effects of it, how it just is. All of the effects of Biofield Tuning are cumulative, and so it just like makes your life better and better, which sounds cheesy, sometimes when I say it out loud, but it's true. Like, everything that you learn in Biofield Tuning just layers on everything else, and then everything just begins to make so much more sense, because you become more centered, you become more grounded, you become more you. Because what we're doing is we're literally moving light that you lost along the way because of unfortunate circumstance, and we're bringing that back to you. So like the light that you lost because of, like your very first heartbreak in high school, like I'm able to listen to that spot, I'm able to hear that spot, I'm able to grab those biophotons, which is just a light particle emitted by a biological organism, and just bring that right back into you so that your body can process it the way it's supposed to. So it's an amazing modality, and yeah, I absolutely love it.
Yes, I do too. I've had a bunch of sessions with some biofield tuners here in Australia, and there's a guy that I just found recently, and I've had 2 amazing sessions with him. I like the level at which the clearing, like stuff that I've worked on for ages with other modalities.
Yeah.
And it's not to discount that work didn't, shift something, because he did say that the things that he's finding are clearing much faster in my body than a typical client. And he said that it speaks volumes to the work that you've done in the past. But I'm telling you, like, when he starts working, like I can feel that electrical aspect of us. Like I can feel like it is
Totally.
so amazing. It blows my mind every time, just feeling that buzz, right? Like
Yeah.
it clear. And it's like, wow, it's like your innate hum. It's like your innate, I love it. I love biofield tuning. I'm so passionate about it.
I'm so glad, Sheila. But yeah, you're exactly right. Like everything in our body, from the electrical impulse that, pumps our heart, to the electrical impulses in our brain, to the electrical impulses of our fascia and our connective tissue, to our blood and its plasma, even our bones are piezoelectric, which means as you compress them, they create electricity and they create light. So like that was one of the best explanations of like exercise to me, because like exercise is here and there, in my mind. It's like sometimes I like to exercise, but sometimes I don't. But then imagining in my mind that my skeleton in my body, when I'm moving, that compression is creating electricity and light, and it's increasing my voltage, which is increasing my health. That is like a whole different reason to exercise. It's like an understanding of inside and out why it feels so good. It's because every time like you move or you dance, because you don't just have to like run to exercise, you can like dance and you can celebrate life in that way. But all of that compression is creating light. So you, in fact, are a light being. It's not just like something the spiritual people say. It's scientifically proven that we emit biophotons, that our bones create light and electricity. And there's nothing more amazing than that. And then, yeah, one of the coolest things I think about biofield tuning, well, there's many. I'll probably say that 7 more times in our interview. But like, we are vibration. Everything in the world is vibration. We remember this from 3rd grade science class, where they're like, everything is vibration. So if sound is vibration and everything in life is vibration, and even disease, if you think about it, is perhaps a vibration out of balance, then wouldn't you just want to treat vibration with vibration? Wouldn't you just want to, introduce like a coherent tone to a discoherent area? And through the science of resonance and entrainment, start to resonate with, and then entrain this dissonance. And so soon you have this like nice balanced sine wave instead of something that feels like choppy. It just like, it all makes sense. And I think one of the best like real life examples of this is how the HeartMath Institute has measured the waveforms of gratitude and also the waveforms of something like agitation or frustration or hatred. And gratitude has the most coherent waveform. And I think that that's so interesting. So that's kind of what we're doing in biofield tuning, is we're finding areas of dissonance. We're allowing the body to hear itself, including the person. Like my clients on the table, they can hear when I hit something in their field. So that is so amazing because it takes the subjectiveness out of it. It's not like I'm working in someone's field and I'm like, I feel something here. And they're like, great, but they can't hear it. Like I hit something in their field and the tone changes in my tuning fork. And you know, if my 174 frequency fork is 174, that means every time I activate it, it should be around 174 every time. However, when I bring my fork through a field off of chakra, whether it's a heart chakra, a throat chakra, a solar plexus chakra, when I bring that tuning fork through the field, it will change in pitch and timbre and tone, and sometimes even volume, if I find an area of dissonance based on that person's life experiences, based on the chakra that I'm working on. So it's not just me being able to feel it and hear it, it's them being able to feel it and hear it too. And then the more I introduce my coherent tone, the more this begins to resonate and then entrain back into balance, to release the biophotons from these standing waves in the field, and then to bring them back into the body and drop them in the chakra. So what I'm doing is I'm just being a guide to bring them back to themselves. Another phrase that I like using is I am a mirror to show people how awesome they are. Yes. That's like all I'm doing is I'm just mirroring and sharing with them, like, look how cool you are. Look what you overcame. Look what you grew through. Look at the person you are now that went through all of these things. And then I just bring all of that light and all of that sparkle back into them. But it's really, it's just them. It's just pieces of them that they've lost along the way due to unfortunate circumstance. Yeah. And it's like, it's such a blessing, and I feel so humbled to be able to do that. It's really such an interesting and cool and magical thing that I can do, is just mirror people's awesomeness back to them and help them hear the sounds of what they went through in their field, and then just bring that all back. So it's really cool. And actually, I wanted to address what you said about how like efficient it is. So, a lot of people will come to biofield tuning, and I might find something in the field and they're like, I've worked on that before. And I'm like, I know, I know. But what we're finding in the field is we're finding the record as it was laid down. So like when I talk about that first heartbreak in high school, like it's not you remembering the pain from before that I find in the field. I find the actual current pain that it was in the field at that age. So that is also why that fork changes so drastically, because we're not in your memory. We're in like the record as it was happening in real time, in live time. So that's sometimes why that fork can change so drastically. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's that? And it's because that's, that could be the sound of your heart breaking. So that's what we're working with. And that's what we're sort of like, if that's a really high tone in the fork of like alarm and shock and surprise, then the longer I stay with it with my fork, I'm balancing that out and bringing that down back into like a mid-tone instead of such an imbalanced high tone. So that's sometimes why it's so efficient and so effective, is because we're literally working with the record as it was laid down. And out of the modalities that I know, I don't think that there's any other modality that sort of like gets to that level of depth of like the record as it was laid down. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's so efficient.
Yeah, and I think Eileen said in an interview that I watched a few months ago, she said, and I've heard other practitioners of different kinds of body work and somatic work use this phrase, that the issues are in the tissues. And so that's what I love about Biofield Tuning is, I have done a lot of emotional work. I've done a lot of body work. I've done, so many different kinds of energy healing and stuff. But it's like the Biofield Tuning is clearing out that injury as the body had,
Totally.
recorded it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it almost feels like it's the perfect thing to just sort of, just like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
no, it really is. In our work, we talk about the hologram a lot. And a hologram is just a part of something that contains all of the information of everything. And so our field is very much, and people know this, like there's reflexology of the hand, which contains all of the organ map. There's the auricular chart, there's the tongue chart, there's also the homunculus and the brain chart. So it's not too far of a stretch to think that maybe, just another view of looking at the body and the biofield is that perhaps everything is mapped in the biofield, just like, it's accepted as reflexology in the hands and the feet and the ears and everything. So, and I love that quote, Sheila, the issues are in our tissues, because sometimes I'm working in the field and sometimes I need to go to the body because that memory or that record that's out here, there's something that's stored inside the body. So we can change and alter the body by being in the field, but we can also change the field by working on the body as well. And so sometimes we do weighted forks on the body, sometimes we're in the field, sometimes like we're both and. But what that is doing is it's unlocking it on all the different levels to really like unlock it from an origin perspective rather than a symptom perspective, which I think again is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, in my, the sessions that I had most recently with my Biofield Tuner, it was interesting to see that the layers, that an issue would come up, that with the mapping, what I would be saying to him when he would find the spot with the fork, and I would actually say, this is what either I'm struggling with in my life right now, or this was, like, oh, it's interesting that you found something at my big toe on my right foot. I said, because this is what's happened in the last 5 years with that big toe. And then it like related to the knee. And I was having issues 5-6 years ago with that knee. And it related back to some like early stuff that was exactly mirroring what 5 years ago had triggered me in that, in that like that emotional struggle. So it was like completely taking him back to like the original trauma, but it was also all the times, it was almost like all the times in my life where that issue had revisited was also detectable. So it was like picking like this one spot and clearing out, several years of that, that lesson that needed to be learned, and that, maybe that original injury, but then the subsequent times that it revisits to try to be healed. And it was like, he was just picking it. And then the feedback is so affirming because he's like, yes, that's exactly the emotional component that body part is all about. And it's so, so it's an amazing, like, I love how Biofield Tuners, it's a very collaborative, they're facilitating, they're very much about empowering the person they're working with, to that deeper understanding. But it blows my mind how Eileen has mapped the biofield, and it's so accurate, so that when you're, as a client, you're revealing something and it's exactly, it's exactly what the facilitator is picking up. It's exactly, it continually blows my mind.
Yeah.
So
no, it's an amazing thing. So I went to visit Eileen in Jamaica in November. And so I just was her demo body in some of the classes that she was teaching at the time. And right before I left, I ended up spraining my right ankle because I climb and I fell off the wall in a weird way and I sprained my ankle. And as I was in Jamaica, and Eileen and I are always talking about this happened. What do you think it means? And what do you think it patterns to? And we're always sort of looking for this design and this patterning. And I realized that right before I've broken up with every single ex-boyfriend of mine, I've sprained my right ankle because the right ankle has to do with next steps and how we feel about them. And so every time I like have that realization where I'm like, oh, like this isn't working out, but I'm so bummed it's not working out because I wanted it to work out. And then sure enough, my right ankle goes because it's like I know that I need to take the steps forward, but I'm also hesitating because I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. And that was just like the funniest realization to realize with her in Jamaica as she's tuning my right ankle, and she's like, Jess, like this feels like an ex-boyfriend and like this kind of feel. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I've sprained my ankle right before I've broken up with every single ex-boyfriend, and then it happened again. So
That's
that was just such
incredible.
yeah, it's incredible. And then also, the way Eileen has mapped everything out, I love it so much. Just because, and she's, Eileen is very open to like sort of everything being to be questioned in a curious way, where she's like, okay, like, figure that out or ask a question or do something. Because again, the way that Eileen developed this was through being curious the whole time, not holding judgments in any way, not even thinking that she knew anything, but just being like, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? And just really just sort of being open and curious to the whole process. And what that allows for in biofield tuning, like, we don't, or I guess I won't speak for everyone, but I don't really I don't call myself a healer. I sort of like, I struggle with that term because I feel like that takes away the power from my clients. And I don't like that. Like, again, I consider myself a guide or a mirror in those ways, because just like you said, biofield tuning is a co-creative process. In no way, shape, or form do people get on my table and go, heal me. And I go, okay. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like that at all. It's so co-creative. Like, I want to know what you're noticing. I want to know what you're feeling. I want to know if memories are coming up. Like, I'm here, but I'm noticing something in my right knee that relates to obstacles. And you're noticing something in your left heart, which relates to sadness. So is there a link there? And so it's this like really beautiful exploratory dialogue the entire time, where we're like always solution oriented.
Right.
When, as just, I'll use the right ankle for an example, next steps moving forward and how we feel about them. So if that's a problem, if I'm working through the right ankle or the right foot, what I want my clients to be thinking, and what I talk to them about, is I want you to be thinking about a clear path forward. I want you to be thinking about the solution. So what does moving forward mean to you? Maybe it's just a feeling of walking through the woods and feeling the wind on your face and like seeing a clear path towards you. Because as we're working on like the problems, like it's not enough to work on the problem. You need to like work on finding the solution. And I think that's what makes like biofield tuners and biofield tuning so great, is that we want to find the solution. We want to find the win-win. We want to find like the middle that like works for like everyone involved. And I think that is, again, just like such a beautiful thing, is like how we're just working on finding the solution and helping people get out of the tracks that they were born into in whatever way, and like, have a different option. Everyone, or not everyone, but some people have this like knee-jerk reaction to like anger. They get triggered and they go to anger, and they get triggered and they go to anger. Well, if you go off that right solar plexus, you're going to find why that is the way that it is, because the right side of the solar plexus in biofield tuning relates to anger. And so the more you bring back that person's light to them, the next time there's a trigger, there's not going to be a tangle for that anger to react to. There's like nothing in the field, and not nothing, because sometimes things come back and, whatever, and that's fine. That's a different story for another time. But, that person like doesn't have that like angry, agitated, extra electricity in their field. which means if they're being triggered where they might have reacted before biofield tuning, it's like they almost like can't react anymore because there's nothing to react to.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I describe this best is, I think a lot of people are familiar with Eckhart Tolle's work, A New Earth and the Pain Body. So, what he says is, you and I are talking, but also our pain bodies are talking.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking to my pain body and I am talking to your pain body. So it's more this four-way conversation that's happening. So like, I like to use the color blue just because it's really neutral. So it's kind of funny. So say, Sheila, you say something about the color blue, but that's a trigger for me. And I'm like, oh my God, Sheila, how dare you talk about the color blue? Don't you know, blah, blah, blah. But when I get tuned, I get sort of that, all of that light comes back to me. So that electricity and that charge is not in my field. And it's also not a bad thing. It's just light and electricity. It's just in a place where it doesn't necessarily belong. So when I bring all of that back in, I no longer have that blue trigger. So people can talk to me about the color blue, and I'm no longer triggered about the color blue because that electricity that was there, that was triggering me, that you or your pain body was responding to and like rattling around with, is no longer there. So I can like sit and talk about the color blue and be completely fine.
Yeah. And, in a way, it seems like it has the power, like the biofield tuning, because it's helping resolve the pattern, right? It's helping resolve the pattern. And, sometimes when we're trying to work with recognizing patterns, changing limiting beliefs, we only can get so far based on where we're at and our understanding of it when we're doing that kind of work. And it's interesting to me that biofield tuning can work on levels of like womb, pre-verbal things that happen that maybe you don't remember. When we're that young, we process life differently. Our brains are processing things differently. We pick up habits and behaviors, from all different directions. And then, they get lodged, those beliefs, those perceptions, those traumas, it's all getting lodged in us. But what I love about biofield tuning is, first of all, you don't have to remember it because your body does. So there's no re-traumatizing and trying to call up these memories. And it's this tool that can get to the root of a problem or root of an issue, something that you wish you could change, like you wish you didn't respond in anger all the time, right? And in biofield tuning, they can get back to that original place that it started, that maybe you couldn't figure out any other way to access that. And then it's diffused. It's like it frees you up to be more of who you were before that stuff got, sort of, hijacked you.
Yeah. I mean, we exist in a torsion field. So essentially what that means is we are electrical, and anything that's electrical produces a magnetic field perpendicular to it. So we are electrical. So we actually produce a magnetic field perpendicular to us. In like the 60s and the 70s, they called it the aura. We are reclaiming it in science. And so in 1994, the term biofield was coined. And what it means is just a field propagated by a biological organism. So if you think about that outer boundary, it is an outer boundary, it's a double layer membrane, if you will. And so what we can find on that outer edge is like what was going on with mom and dad before you were born. And that just in itself is so educational and informational, but also so deep with its meaning and, what it can mean for you. So like if mom and dad were like not doing well and debating getting a divorce, that meant that by the time you were cooking in your mom's belly, there was this like I don't know what's going to happen next. I feel maybe powerless. I feel maybe sad. I feel concerned. I feel like maybe I should like leave, but I'm not sure. So should I stay? All of those feelings that mom is feeling, you're feeling too, because you're in mom. So that is the situation that you're being born into. Now, that sounds heavy, but the greatest part about that is what it means is all of those things are not innate to you as a human. They are what you got inundated with when you were being, as I like to call, cooked in your mom's belly. So that's not you. That's not who you are. Like, who you are is this beautiful, like, lotus flower gem blossom. It's the most gorgeous thing in the world, but that's not you. That's what was sort of imprinted on you by the time you were being cooked, and by the time your birth story happened. Who knows? If there was like a death in the family around you being born that mom and dad were really close to, now you're being born into grief. And there's joy, of course, because you're being born, but there's also grief. So there's also this like very very just like deep understanding of life and death in that process. And so that's the mood that you're being born into. So then all of these things turn into the environment and the atmosphere that you were born into. So your first experience as a human being on this earth, in this carnation, you are experiencing all of these things that are not yours. And then say as a baby, you were sick. So say for the first 2 weeks, they took you away from mom. So at the time that you're supposed to be imprinting on mom and smelling her smells and feeling her skin and being touched and loved, you're not. You're in a machine because you're sick. So like what that amazing cocktail can turn someone into someone who is afraid of the world, someone who's afraid of abandonment, also maybe someone who abandons others because they don't want to be abandoned. So they just constantly push away. So that turns into this, like all of these different potential archetypes. But when you listen into the outer edge, you're like, oh, big deep breath. And, then you start working with them and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all of these amazing things that you've gone through, but grown through. And look at the person that you are today, wanting help, wanting a mirror because you can't see this stuff yourself. So you're coming to me or other biofield tuners as a guide and a mirror so that we can talk about this, so that I can hear what you went through, or I can hear what your parents went through right before you were born. And so what then that allows is like a different perspective, this broad perspective of like, oh, maybe these things aren't my fault, maybe like, and maybe I didn't even know what they were. So how can you know something's a problem, or how can you address a problem that you don't know you have? And then also from ages 0 to 7, we're in theta brainwave state, which is hypnosis. So from ages 0 to 7, everything that's talked about, every mannerism, every argument, every friendship, every relationship that your parents have or do in front of you, you are just absorbing like a tiny, tiny sponge. It's just all part of you. So that's why, when you meet your friend's parents, they like twirl their hair the same way, or they talk the same way, or they laugh and they move their body in the same way, because for 7 years, they were just being imprinted consistently. So from ages 0 to 7, were mom and dad happy the whole time? Did mom and dad get divorced? Did you move schools? Was that hard for you? Did your best friend move schools and you lost, your favorite friend? Which is a tragedy when you're a child. Like when your best friend moves away, oh my gosh, it's horrible. So all of these things, they create stress in the system. And so what they found is that when we are under stress, or when we're sick or old or dying or anything, we cannot hold on to our light as much as we can when we're young and well. So if you think about the immune system, like the emotional immune system, when your body's under stress, you're stressed, your immune system is lowered. And so what that means is you're leaking light into the field. So if I'm 5 years old here and my best friend leaves and I'm really sad, and then I grow up and I grow up and I grow up and I grow up, and now I'm 33, my 5-year-old spot, well, it would be off camera. We'll say 15 years old to make it easy. So that means that these biophotons, these light particles, my sparkle and my essence, because I lost my friend moved away when I was 15, I was so sad that I lost a bunch of light right here. And so all I do as a tuner is I use sound, because sound at a certain level and a certain frequency is magnetic. So I use my sound to find the light, because it changes in pitch and timbre and tone. And I click into the light, and it's the same on the electromagnetic spectrum. Vibration is vibration. And so I'm using vibration to find vibration, to move vibration, to fix vibration. And so I'm able to click in, and I'm able to pull that light that I lost along the way back into my system. So I'm walking those biophotons back home to where they belong in this body. So I'm like, so yeah, so all I am is a guide. But then that person is more centered and they're more whole, because, I think, and I think everyone can relate to this. When we had our first heartbreak, it felt like we shattered, like our very first heartbreak. We broke. It was the first time we were in love. It doesn't matter what age. That first time your heart gets broken, it's like, oh gosh, it's a tragedy. And you feel like you shatter. But the great news is, well, yes, you do shatter. That's not the great news. The great news is that you shatter into the confines of your field. You don't lose pieces off into infinity, never to be seen again. You're surrounded by a magnetic bubble. So you lose the pieces of you right around you. So all of you is right here. All of the light is right here. Some of it just needs a little bit of help being brought in. So that's why people feel lighter, and they feel more whole, and they feel more centered, and they feel more grounded, because we're just returning their light to them. We're returning their sparkle, their childlike wonder, their amusement with the world, their sense of humor. We're returning all of that in to them, so that they can be more centered and grounded, and then be less reactive, because they're happier, because they're more whole. So all we're doing is bringing almost like fragments back in to the person. And some people who have studied shamanism more than I, they have said that this is very much like shamanic soul retrieval, where a shaman will go into a trance in whatever way, and they'll go to this other world, and they'll look for pieces and fragments of the soul, and they'll ask the questions: why did you stop singing and dancing and celebrating life and all of the good things? And then they guide those fragments of the soul back home. And that's kind of the same thing that we're doing, but we're doing it with more electromagnetic spectrum perspective, where we're just helping guide you back home with the fork and the sound and the coherence and resonance and entrainment.
It's beautiful. It's so it's poetic, but it's also so it's just the way that you explain how it works is like I'm learning so much right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, because years ago when I first started on my healing journey at 18, and so I heard about how trauma causes these soul fragments, and they my understanding back then was that when these fragments happen, you're lucky to ever retrieve them, right? That it takes a shaman to go find them, right, and bring them back. And I've had friends who have studied shamanism. And so what I find so interesting with biofield tuning is this idea that they haven't gone that far. They're in your biofield.
Oh, and there's a dog. Yeah, they're right here. They're not far away. They just need a little bit of a guide, and vibration seems to be a really effective guide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also I love how even just the simplicity of some of the movements that you're doing with the fork, it's like you're scooping, you're scooping it back in. It hasn't gone far.
That's one of the words that I use is I'm just scooping you back to you. And one of my favorite things, Eileen has great phrases for everything that she does. But sometimes I have phrases too. And so there's a moment where you're coming in and you're dropping in, and then it's Eileen will call it mixing paint, which is very descriptive, mixing one color with a different color, and then you're integrating. I like to call it a biophoton family reunion, because these biophotons in the field haven't seen these biophotons in the heart chakra in a really long time. So they're like, oh, guys, like we haven't seen you in so long. So I call it a biophoton family reunion. And I also do that to make my clients smile because, you know, laughter is the best medicine. So if I can get my clients to like smile and laugh during this process, then like I feel like I'm doing a good job. Because if you can like laugh about the things that you've gone through, like that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that healing doesn't have to be difficult or traumatic. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that I've known a lot of people in my life that when I was doing a lot of healing work, people would make remarks about, well, I don't want to open up, you know, I just want to move on, right? Like, I couldn't do what you do, you know, like I couldn't, you know, talk to a therapist and rehash everything. And it is this sense, I think some people, they're not curious enough about who they are and to embrace that journey, and they think it's going to be painful, so they resist it. So that's another reason I love biofield tuning, because it's perfect for everyone, because it's not invasive. It's not in any way like re-traumatizing. You can clear these issues deeply, just with a little curiosity and a tuning fork.
Totally. Yeah, and I think, you know, that's one of the things that I like about biofield tuning as well, is like it's a journey. And like for me as a tuner, it's an adventure every time. Every client I have, it's an adventure. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to find? Because, you know, I've been doing this since 2014, and no session I've ever had has been the same as any other session that I've ever had. And like for me, like, you know, my brain works very quickly. And so sometimes I get bored easily. But with biofield tuning, it's like such an adventure, because I know my next client is going to be nothing like my last client, and so on, because we've come from different places. We had different parents with different religions and different backgrounds. We lived in different areas with different, you know, thought processes and different friends. You know, if we've traveled, we've seen more. Like everything is like so different that it's just such an incredible thing. And then it's a journey. Like there's no destination. Like you know, like I don't think that we're going to achieve perfection in this life, and that's actually hard for me to say as a Virgo rising and a Capricorn moon. But like I know that I'm not going to attain perfection in this lifetime, and so you might as well enjoy the ride as it's going. So like and I'm going to butcher her name, but Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun that everyone knows, and you can correct me if I'm saying her name wrong, because I might be and I'm not sure.
I think it's
But okay, thank you. She has a quote that says, chaos should be regarded as extremely good news. And I love that so much, because we don't grow when we're comfortable. When everything is like easy, we don't grow. I mean, we might read stuff and we might still be self-aware, and we might still, you know, try to be better people, but it's chaos and change that makes us grow and evolve in ways that we wouldn't without it. And so like what I'm finding in the field is like it's these opportunities to grow. And so like at the end of the day and at the end of the session, I'm like, again, I'm like, there's this Elizabeth Kubler-Ross quote that I like a lot about how beautiful people don't just happen. They've known struggle, they've known suffering, they've known defeat, they've been in the pits of despair, and every time they've gotten out of it by themselves and with themselves. And just beautiful people don't just happen. And I love that so much. And I love reminding my friends and my family and my clients of that, is like, look how far you've come. Celebrate the simple wins, just the tiny wins. You know, sometimes a win is like washing your hair, taking a bath. And that's good enough, because if your body and your mind hears you being appreciative of the tiny things, then it starts to open up for the bigger things, and it starts to provide more opportunities for the larger things, because you're acknowledging the little things. And it's like the little moments that matter. How you treat other people matters. That knee-jerk reaction matters. That taking a breath before you react matters. That breathing and grounding and centering and coming back to yourself before you respond, all of those things matter.
Yeah, beautiful, beautifully put. So I could talk to you all day. um, but we need to wrap it up. So is there anything else, any last thoughts before you go that you want to share with the people listening?
Oh gosh, probably. I would say to spend time in nature. To spend time in nature alone. I think that there's something really magical about like being in the vibration of the woods and the forest and everything. In Japan, there's an actual Japanese word for it, which of course I've forgotten at this moment, but it translates to forest bathing. And like I think that one of the things that's like wrong with society today is that we're not like really connected to nature anymore. And like vibration is such a natural part of nature. You know, like when you're outside in the spring and like the birds are chirping and the bees are buzzing and like you can feel the aliveness and everything, like that's all a vibration. So like spending time solo time, or maybe solo time, or just, you know, being in nature and like really just allowing all of those vibrations to come into your field and to welcome in, you know, the songs of the birds and like the sun and the wind and everything. Like all of that is a vibration, and it's so good and juicy and nourishing and like just delicious that you're like your whole body can feel that. And so like, you know, anytime I have a second of free time, I'm in the woods, and I've been that way since I was a child. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that's made me me, is like how much time I've spent in nature over the years. Is just like as soon as I have a second of time, I'm like to the forest, and I just think that that makes a big difference. So I would say that just like spending time in nature, having gratitude. Again, gratitude is the most coherent waveform that there is. So even if you're feeling like sad or depressed, because that can happen, especially in times of COVID, making a list of the things that you're grateful for and making that list be different every day. So if like, you know, on Monday, your list is I'm grateful for like my parents and my siblings and my family and whatever, the second day has to be something different. The third day has to be something different. And soon you have this extremely long list and you're like, oh, like there's so many things to love. And like, of course, I'm not saying that that is just going to like solve depression, but it definitely helps to be a reminder of like, oh yeah, like there are all of these beautiful things to appreciate and enjoy.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
changes your vibration by doing it. Yeah.
Changes your vibration. Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jess, for making the time to be here today and for just giving so generously all your thoughts and insights. I really enjoyed learning more about you and Biofield Tuning. So I hope that everyone was able to get some beautiful insights for their own life. And if you want to learn more about Jess or Biofield Tuning, there are links below the video. And, you know, thank you again for being here today and just sharing your love and your passion.
Thank you so much, Sheila. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's so lovely to chat with you, and I feel the same way, where I could just talk to you for hours, because it sounds like we have a similar life path and journey as well. So I love that so much, and thank you so much for the opportunity, for inviting me, and for all of that. And I appreciate you, and to whoever's listening, I appreciate you so much. And thanks for listening and being a part of Sheila's conference, and thanks for listening to this talk. And yeah, just thank you for everything.
Great. Thank you so much. All
Thanks,
right.
Sheila.
So we have more talks coming. So stay tuned and thanks for listening today.